the first angels. Stanberg rammed his fist into the face of the alien, and the skull broke into many pieces. Blood and brain fell down to the ground. It was not red, it was a kind of a purple liquid that smelled like rotten flesh. The creature he killed belonged to the ancient alien race called Xenogl. These old and warlike beings took delight in the massive genocide that should be spread over the galaxy. They called it cleansing, but they were nothing more than the harbingers of death itself. Destruction and death wherever they appeared. You did the right thing to kill the brute, Ullman. Trust me. Only a dead Sioux is a good Sioux, his friend Isyorn said. I know, Stanberg whispered, and took his sword out of the carcass. If we were not here to fight these beings, the whole of mankind would be doomed. Isyorn nodded and looked down to the other creatures who were killed by his men. Ullman Stanberg was the prince of the 10th Arctus army. Now, some of you wonder, what is an Arctus? When in the age of space travel and the human colonies were young, a genius called Leonardo Arecto had the dream of creating implants and medicine that every planet government would be able to educate the mightiest warriors the universe has ever seen. Ullman Stanberg was one of these warriors. Killing and protecting, the only purpose of their lives. Humanity needed the World Walkers to protect itself from any evil the universe could release. And the Arctus did well, very well, for more than 5,000 years. Isyorn put his hand on Ullman's shoulder and said, You must kill the alien scum before it kills you, my dear friend and leader. After that, the great colossal form of the battlecruiser appeared between the red clouds of the planet named Araman. The ship anchored on the moon a few months ago to send down the soldiers of the mighty Kaiser and his kings to hold this world and its people back into the holy light of the Kaiserreich. Ullman Stanberg took off his helmet and stared into the sky that was wreathed in red mist. This was nearly an apocalyptic world, but freed. High hills consisted of silhouettes of corpses and machines. The dead ones will be honored when we find the time for it. Now, let us finally leave this world and let the time that we have spent on this planet behind us. Firstly, we should come home and getting our heads free of these battles. Stanberg held his finger to his forehead, showing a red stripe that was already dry and crustal, but it still seemed fresh at some places. Do you see this? There the foe almost could have killed me. He laughed, and the smell of his own blood went up into his nose. Soon that will be a new scar of my wound collection. Some called them angels. Others gave them the name Project Landing Wings. In contrast to the other warriors of their kind, the angels were the first Arctus ever to fly. Soon they would call the skies their own and be outstanding scouts. Besides, the golden wings would only be nothing than decoration. It should make them looking more angelic, glorious, and to lift up their names. Sergeant Rathson was in the act of reading the list of the new published weapon system the army would soon have. Suddenly he heard a noise of the heavy iron gates of the weapons depot. He turned around and saw the majestic form of his leader and king, Earlman Stamberg, whose white shining armor was now stained with the blood of the beings he was fighting against down on the planet that looked like a red and orange glowing orb streaked by white sandstorms behind the glass of the spaceship. The Teutonics were leaving this sector to return back home to the world called Valhalla. "Welcome back, Majesty," Rathson bowed deeply. The king lifted up his left arm. "Rise up, my subject and friend." And so Rathson did, putting the list into a small container and expecting the reason the king had come for. "I'm sure you heard about the new project the Kaiser has started." The king sat down and laid his hands, which were protected by great gauntlets, on his legs. "You should feel honored to become one of the first angels in our lines. Furthermore, you should lead them, Rathson." His king's words echoed in his ears, and he soon began to understand that there was a much higher goal in his existence than serving and looking for the machines. Meanwhile, on planet Saxonzul, another force of the Teutonics was sent a few months ago to stamp down a riot that broke out because of the great starvation that came when the government confiscated all of the food to feed the local protectors.
"Inhabitants of Saxonzul, this is the Erectus command. We command you to stay back and to lay your weapons down. Obey, or we will be forced to act violently."
One of the citizens ran towards an Erectus to strike him down with a rusty iron bar, but he fell when one of the warriors grabbed his neck to smash his skull by his right fist.
"Kamerad Dobial, strike down from the sky and make the crowd apart. Kill everyone who dares to stop you."
Dobial nodded, activated the nozzles of his Fleokreuz, and with a thunderous noise he began to soar into the air. A golden shimmer of the wings accompanied him and forced the people to stare away.
"In the name of our Holy Father Ludwig Mentorio, push them back!"
Dobial shouted when he landed on Earth, his long sword swinging and tearing off body parts. "Keep deaths at a minimum and force them to surrender," one of the Schwertstaff militias yelled. Though their armors were bulletproof in most cases, nothing could protect you from the laser of a ray gun. The commander screamed in agony when the ray pierced through the golden and blue armor and the warrior's flesh.
"Commander Wefalithus has fallen. Show no mercy, camarades. Their resistance is futile."
Dobial tore apart another rebel who wanted to shoot him, and the 2 meters tall warrior threw the dead bodies of his victims who have fallen by sword a fortress away. His eyes, which stared through the helmet, met the eyes of another rebel who held, anxious, a spear in both of his hands. It was an average tall young man with a steel helmet and a dark brown coat. He said something in the Lowen of Yanish dialect the Erectus was not able to understand clearly. Sergeant Dobial drew himself up, still focusing his attention on the hesitating man, waiting for the decision. And he made a decision. Instead of running towards the massive warrior, the man threw the spear, but it did not hurt Dobial. In fact, the peak of the spear broke into pieces, which fell strumming to the ground. Sergeant Dobial felt the will to murder getting stronger, and under the helmet his mouth formed to a murderous smile with gritted teeth. The rebel narrowed his eyes to slits and wanted to pull out a ray pistol from his belt, but the Erectus was faster, and flung the human into the air to impale him by the blade, which was smeared in blood. The human let out a last breath before his muscles went limp.
This is the destiny of all who betray our glorious kings. Nobody shall trespass against humanity and the Kaiser himself.
He pushed the corpse off the blade and looked around to notice that there were no more inhabitants in sight.
Du, hvem från Wheelas. Ma likt i oben universa flotan. Leidinert jantil sirigo et giotan reinharta uvalen frio vella universa. Vi mamithan du genergis fen liu, sta i du vaganuton. Mein Neven verlatanos, regma fallen irvithon legs in ruines. Wand präsente sein Gnadwerk soll skullender. Sein voring gildan in verje Welt, da ma wahre Frido wie en Viandak soll swerts vigean. Ema valtan uva inertians, wie wäre es Korane, wie den Arictos and wie fecta las forta. Kaiser haldithos.
One day after the massacre, the two Erectors called Dobian and Rathson fought against each other to improve their battle tactics. They fought without their armor and weapons. The traditional way of Aronian boxing was to fight topless. Everything was allowed, excepting scratching someone's eyes and strangling. It was a very brutal sport, and the fight mostly ended with broken ribs, legs or arms. "Victory's mine," Dobian said and smiled proudly. Rathson spat blood on the ground and wiped the blood away that was flowing from his nose. Then he gasped and stared into the face of Sergeant Dobian. "You fought well," Rathson pointed at his temple. "You hit me very hard." Dobian let out a laugh and helped Rathson up. "Your bones are harder than Kagan steel. A little headache and it will be over." "What was fighting the riot like?" Rathson asked. "A handful Erectus has fallen, while your company was busy with doing exercises. But we could stamp the riot down quickly. 40 inhabitants died, but we had to kill them because they forced us to. Not even an Erectus wants a bullet in his head. Ever heard of self-defense?" Rathson wrapped a white towel around his neck and walked together with Dobian to the thermal bath, where the men were recovering from their battles and gaining new energy. "Let me guess. Erman Stenberg decided that you, Rathson, should lead his new kind of warriors, right?" Rathson nodded proudly and smiled. "Yes," he said. "He told us that we Erectors are the ones who should strike down the foes of humanity, and the creation of a new warrior class seems interesting." "Almighty Kaiser," Dobian sighed. "My point of view is that I should be the leader. I defeated you, His Majesty is too kind." Rathson boxed his comrade. "Hey, that does not give you the right to claim the leadership, my friend." Dobian nodded. "Just a little joke, Rath. We spoke about the Great Riot in the cities of planet Saxonzul. Well, a further problem to note is that our proud army has lost many converts when we fought against the Caritas. These aliens are unpredictable. Nevertheless, we have to fight against them again. They could be a greater threat than I had expected." "What do you mean?" Rathson darted a confused glance at Dobian. "I think they prepare for a great war. They upgrade their machines, weapons, and the number of their warriors has rapidly increased. But they shall be destroyed wherever they might appear. Did we ever give up?" "I do not recall," Sergeant Rathson said. "Me too." They entered the thermal bath, took their clothes off, and began to swim. Once, there was an ancient empire called the Roman Empire. When the humans left Terra a few thousand years ago, they gathered some information and artifacts about all Terran cultures After 10,000 years, the humans seem to have forgotten the most of the pasts. Some people suspect that the word Kaiser, that is what the leader is called, comes from an old Germanic language and should be a synonym for the Roman Emperor. Anyway, the thermal baths were built like those in Roman times. Most of the visitors took a long sweat bath to clean their pores, and after that they jumped into ice-cold water to close them. But a few men just sat in the warm water and rested. Meanwhile, the most of his men entered their bedchambers. King Ermenstenberg stood in front of a great spherical glass plate, staring into the dark halls of the galaxy, his eyes paying attention to other ships which were under his orders. The leader of the Novians took off his gauntlets, and his fingers ran through his hair, which seemed to be a mix of dark brown and black. His emerald green eyes still focused on the fleets. After a while he closed them and let out a sigh. I know you are there. I already noticed you standing right behind the pillar of this hall. Come out and face your fate, the king demanded. Suddenly the yet unknown visitor left the shadows and set foot into the light that revealed a great humanoid figure wearing a light golden plate armor crossed over by some hoses. But the head had a long and oval shape with light blue skin. What are you? The king asked. The being chuckled. I should be the one to ask that, it answered. Are you a brute or a wise man? It stretched out its fingers and pointing at the white-armored tall man. And if you would be so kind to turn around, you should soon recognize me. Stenberg grumbled and did what the creature said. His eyes glittered at the prospect of hatred. You are a Keretets. I do not really wonder how you managed to enter this ship. We are aware of your devious appearances and deeds, and know how to deal with your vicious kind, being from outer space. I'm not here to fight, human, the creature said, waving a hand. Now, you better do what I say, listen to my word. How dare you to issue a command on my ship? Stenberg gritted his teeth in frustration. Speak, before I change my mind. The creature smiled and nodded. This is an offer you can't deny, Stenberg. And it would yield hope to both of our kinds. My leader Fatarish is willing to declare armistice for now. Erman raised an eyebrow. Armistice? What kind of ruse is that? Keep listening, the alien spat. Something we have in common is that the Sunogl are our arch-enemies, and as humans say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We are not your friends, but I think we should not fight ourselves, as long as the biggest threat the universe has ever seen is not defeated yet.
We are born to bring the fire of the Kaiser. With golden wings we shall rise. We are the first angels. Alles, wie du reden, wie du Jesus, wie du's ausgeben.